Hey, everybody. It's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan, and I've not had this exact feeling before. And have huge anticipation of what I expect to be, at the very least, something that puts a big smile on my face and everyone else's face. Or it might even be something that I have to live stream with a pink sparkle. I'm talking about the William Hinman emails. They're due to be released in the next 24 hours, and they're going to look a lot like this, except without the redactions. And speaking about a live stream, this is Alex Cobb. He is currently live streaming. He's an OG in the space. I mean, certified, if you don't know. He started his live stream about 8 hours ago, and he says he's not stopping until the emails are released. He's going for a personal record. Mr. Yoshitaka Kitao, or Kitao-san as he's called in Japan, is a unique guy. And he was speaking for a business update about 7 days ago on his channel. And we're going to take a look at that. Because there were some crazy translations out there. And it's very difficult to translate literally. When you do a literal translation, it's impossible because every language has its own nuance with words, and especially Mr. Kitao, who speaks like a daimyo, which is the Edo period regional rulers. He's got his kingdom, and he does not speak like a government employee giving a press release. No, not at all. And he has a unique way about him, a very distinct style. So in this clip, which everybody was sharing, where he's talking about Ripple and XRP, yeah, it's good. But, it's not some of the media that's covering it now. When he talked about how it's going to be, quite a price for the Ripple shares, and as he's the largest outside shareholder, he's excited for the fact that they're going to IPO after all this mess has come to a conclusion. So he uses the word conclusion, which is ketsuron, and he is making just a typical update to the shareholders, which is what he is, properly put in his position of leadership to do for the people who invest in SBI. And yeah, I think he has this feeling of anticipation too, no doubt. And but the media now is using words like there's going to be a massive increase. Well, massive is not the word he used. It's just kind of in a very conservative way, it's going to be quite a price. And it's not going to be something that is going to hit the moon. I saw some funny translations out there. No, this is not a moonshot announcement or speech at all. This one that is floating around out there where it says that you don't have to listen to an ugly fish, this is not a real translation. Somebody's just having fun. And I got a lot of questions if this was real. No, it's not. If you ever want to see the slides that go with those very long updates, whether it's a quarterly report or a information meeting as it was on May 29th, they're on the investment relations website. They do have some English pages. In the 133 pages, yeah, they're really intense. I liked this page the best because it's talking about the expansion of crypto assets that are being introduced into the Japanese market. That's a big thing because you have to jump through a lot of hoops to be approved in Japan. And the big announcement for this particular meeting was that XDC was going to start trading on May 31st. And the SBI VC trade site is the first exchange in Japan to carry XDC. You also have a token like this, GXE, which I would imagine very few people outside of Japan are familiar with. If you're in Southeast Asia and Japan, you know this, especially if you're a gamer. This is Zeno, and it's got a play-to-earn business model and a very complicated, actually, tokenomics. I was studying it, and it takes a lot of concentration. It's built on an NFT ecosystem. BitBoy got his channel back on Twitter. That's a good thing. But I've had a real problem with impersonators. I mean, look at this. Just look at this to the right here. These are all fake accounts. Well, actually, the top one is me. But then going down below are all fake accounts. And I report 2 or 3 a day. This one was rich. It is my name with my profile, my header. But look, Eleanor Terrett. Oh my gosh. Relentless. These impersonators are relentless. I just don't know what else to say, except if you see one on Twitter, yeah, please do report, but be careful not to report me. I'm going to let a short clip mashup take you out. This is from, what was it? Just on the 7th of June. Yeah, it was good. It was a subcommittee on the national security and really zeroing in on the dollar dominance, preserving the US dollar status as a global reserve currency. I did what I think is going to give you a very good overview, because they had a fantastic panel. And so it doesn't take long to get through. And the reason why I would recommend to watch it is because there's a lot of people out there doing these dollar dominance videos that are trying to just engage with high viewers and clicks based on fear. Fear sells big time. Fear on YouTube is a big seller. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't fear the dollar losing its dominance, because eventually it will. But in listening to these experts in the panel, and I know that word is always debatable if these people are experts or not, but I think they were really high quality. They were high quality, and so yeah, weigh what they have to say, and use it when you're doing your critical thinking, and you're listening to some of those channels out there that are telling you that the dollar is going to lose its position in the next year or two, because I don't think that's it. Although, yes, there are things that happen that are completely unknown, those black swans that we never know about. But I think it's good, because I'm sure that you're consuming some of that content. Everyone is. And this is just helping you weigh all that information you're getting. All right. Do take care, everyone. I hope to see you on a live stream tomorrow with a pink sparkle in my hand. Do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
In 2022, as the ranking member highlighted, 88% of all foreign exchange transactions by value involve the United States dollar, a figure that has been roughly constant since 1989, which is testament to the substantial path dependence in international currency usage due to large positive network externalities. By comparison, 31% of all foreign exchange transactions by value involve the euro, which is the second most commonly transacted currency, which accounted for 20% of official foreign exchange reserves. The fact that 90% of all foreign exchange transactions continue to involve the United States dollar, and that global central banks continue to hold almost 60% of their foreign exchange reserves in US dollars, confers net economic benefits on the United States economy.
As Assistant Secretary, I told my team that the Treasury Secretary proudly states that the dollar will never not be the world's reserve currency, and our job is to make sure that's true. Maintaining that role means engaging in prudent economic stewardship, continuously upgrading the technology supporting the nation's payment system, and showing restraint in our deployment of unilateral sanctions. Most importantly, we must demonstrate to the rest of the world that we are financially responsible by addressing our unsustainable fiscal path. Our growing debt erodes confidence around the world that the U.S. will continue being a responsible economic steward worthy of status as the world's reserve currency. Given the outsized role of the federal government in our economy, recent growth has been anemic. Inflation is still well above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Inflation-induced interest rate hikes have resulted in 3 of the 4 largest bank failures in U.S. history. Yet there seems to be an insistence on throwing more gasoline on the stagflation fire. Washington-directed spending that replaces low-cost, reliable sources of energy with high-cost, unreliable sources of energy creates both inflation and contraction. The Federal Reserve cannot alone mitigate the inflationary impacts of fiscal and regulatory policy. Higher interest rates further undermine the banking system and erode the value of the dollar. Instead, the Federal Reserve needs help from Congress and the administration. They should reduce federal spending, rescind regulations that are curtailing economic growth, and devaluing the dollar.
It is my honor to be speaking with you today about preserving the US dollar status as the world's preeminent international currency. I would like to open with my bottom line up front. As the United States has increased its reliance on financial sanctions as a tool of foreign policy, it has provoked anti-dollar policy responses from our adversaries. Though such steps are unlikely to upend the dollar's position as top international currency, including the reserve currency role, over time such policies could diminish the coercive capabilities that the United States derives from dollar centrality. Though our republic has never been ruled by a monarch, the US dollar has become a powerful symbol of American financial royalty. Indeed, the dollar is often described as the king of all currencies, and rightly so. Across the full spectrum of international roles that a national currency can play, the reserve currency role, cross-border payments and trade settlement, turnover in foreign exchange markets, and so on, America's currency outcompetes all comers and presently lacks a true rival in this space. Over the last 2 decades, the United States has used the tool of financial sanctions with increasing frequency. For example, in the year 2000, just 4 foreign governments were directly targeted under a U.S. Treasury country program overseen by the Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC. Today, that number is greater than 20, and if we include penalties from secondary sanctions, the list gets even longer. The more that the United States has reached for financial sanctions, the more it has made adversaries in foreign capitals aware of the strategic vulnerability that stems from dependence on the dollar. Some governments have responded by implementing anti-dollar policies, measures that are designed to reduce an economy's reliance on the U.S. currency for investment in cross-border transactions. Though these measures sometimes fail to achieve their goals, others have produced modest levels of de-dollarization. Notable examples here include Russian steps to cut its dollar reserves and reduce the use of the dollar in trade settlement in the years leading up to its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, or China's ongoing efforts to build its own international payments network based on the yuan, efforts that have taken on a new sense of urgency as Beijing has become more aware of its own strategic vulnerabilities from dollar dependence. To be clear, I do not believe that geopolitically motivated moves by Russia, China, or any other country gravely threaten the dollar's supremacy in the near or medium term. The dollar remains the world economy's indispensable currency and maintains economic and political advantages over all alternatives. However, the growing number of states espousing anti-dollar viewpoints and adopting anti-dollar policies does threaten to weaken the future potency of U.S. financial sanctions.
To paraphrase Mark Twain, reports of the dollar's demise have been greatly exaggerated. That said, we need to remind ourselves that in the 16th century, the Spanish silver dollar was the dominant currency. In the 17th century, it was Dutch florins. In the 18th century, it was the pound sterling. The link between a nation's currency and its role as the relatively dominant political actor on the world stage is pretty clear. And that is why people like Lula from Brazil, Putin, and Xi all aspire to undercut the role of the dollar as the global reserve currency. In my view, Chairman Xi poses the most serious threat to this effort. He has dictatorial control of communist China. He's purged all of his main rivals. He has a vision of China as the middle kingdom to which all of the nations on the periphery ultimately will pay tribute. And some cultures, like the Uyghurs, will be enslaved and eradicated. And to that end, he's overseen a massive expansion in Chinese conventional military capability, an unprecedented nuclear weapons buildup, and he is now ominously threatening invasion of Taiwan.
The dollar is the most important currency in the world, both for official and private actors, although its dominance has been declining since the 1970s, and there has been a recent downward cycle since 2016. Now, dominance can simply mean relatively stronger than anyone else, but here I take dominance to mean a currency that other currency majors are unable to balance, effectively a unipolar currency order. I will note that the dollar's dominance is not quite as strong amongst private actors in private markets as it is with governments. In private transactions, it averages about 45% of the world total. That includes FX transactions, but also things like issuance of international debt securities and cross-border banking. On threats to dollar dominance, the Russia sanctions have had little impact, to no impact actually, on dollar dominance. In fact, given the recent uptick in the dollar's reserve currency status, sanctions may be reinforcing dollar dominance. The Chinese yuan poses no immediate threat to dollar dominance. It accounts for roughly 3% of overall reserves. And so far, China has been successful in promoting the yuan with its trade partners, but the yuan is scarcely used by countries outside trade with China. China is a potential long-term challenger due to its active pursuit of trade and investment relationships. If the yuan is increasingly used by third countries, it will pose a greater threat to the dollar. And in addition to these external threats, there is also a domestic threat. Flirting with the possibility of a voluntary default puts dollar dominance at risk. What should the US do to maintain dominance? To curb the domestic threat, Congress should consider creating an alternative mechanism for resolving political differences on government spending and its consequences. To rein in external threats, the United States should, whenever possible, implement multilateral sanctions in support of broadly endorsed goals to shore up the liberal international order. This is likely to limit dollar backlash. To counter China's advances, the US should consider economic inducements in addition to its use of sanctions as a tool of economic statecraft. The United States cannot afford to alienate security allies in this geopolitical environment. Security relationships are increasingly informing economic relationships. Just as countries are starting to source goods from friendly nations, they may adopt friendly nation currencies as they did during the Cold War. Thank you.
Look, the BRICS are, these are countries, India being an exception in that, but these are countries that are autocratic or otherwise have, very hostile opinions of the United States, especially Russia and China. So I think we need to understand that they are working at cross purposes with us on the full range of issues. Where we need to be very, very careful and where I think we've perhaps taken a major step backwards is allowing China to insert itself into the Persian Gulf and what they're doing with the Saudis in particular. They want guaranteed access to Saudi oil in the event of a crisis, and that's what they're up to in brokering those relationships.
I think what we're seeing is, China, we're seeing Russia, we're seeing other countries try to create alternative, certainly payments networks. Russia has its own SPFS payment messaging system. It's quite small. It was launched in 2014, not coincidentally, after the initial round of sanctions targeting Russia. In terms of SIPs, China's cross-border payments network, Belarus announced it was having banks join immediately following the 2022 sanctions. And so what I'm saying is there's a pattern, between when the United States mobilizes control over the pipes and the messaging of cross-border payments and adversaries looking for alternatives. Doesn't mean they're using them, but they're getting plugged into the system as at least sort of a rainy day option in the event of a future targeting.
Cryptocurrency, sir.
Gentlemen, either ask a question or allow your...
I asked the question, and he answered a different question.
Gentlemen. Either reclaim your time and go to another witness and ask a question.
My time is continuing to run here, and so I'm going to ask...
You're continuing to talk about it. You're recognized for the balance of your time to ask a question of the witnesses.
He was answering on a question I've already asked.
And you reclaimed your time and went back to go to another witness.
In fact, my time is almost over now since the
I'll give you another 30 seconds.
No, that's okay. But I asked the question. They answered the question. And I didn't want them to go back to the question.
reclaim your
Question was,
time and go to the
no,
next witness.
you go ahead, but I'm going to yield back my time. I asked my questions. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from California, Ms. Kim.